This is the Bird's Eye View podcast. I'm Sarah Blau.
And I'm Figgy Bloomstein. And together, we're on a search for real answers to real questions so that you can feel your own Yiddishkeit. It's yours. It's your inheritance.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another episode of the Bird's Eye View. I'm so excited to be here with Figgy and our incredible guest, Rochi Pinson. Welcome, Rochi.
So happy to be here with you, Faggy, and with you, Sarah. What a treat.
And Rochi is a shlicha, a designer, and a challah master. She's the author of 2 incredible cookbooks made of challah.
Yes.
And they are
challah,
gorgeous.
all the
Gorgeous,
time.
gorgeous.
Coffee table books. That's what I like.
Right. Coffee table books.
Yeah,
Although,
even if you-
when people bring me a dirty copy, I am, that does make me happy. They come with their crumbs all over and they want me to sign it.
It's been used.
Yeah.
So the first cookbook is called Rising. It's an international bestseller already in its 5th printing since publication. And really, you inspired women to make challah. People who didn't make challah before see this gorgeous colored cookbook and they're making challah. And it's this multi-generational thing because it's not just Rising. You also have this amazing cookbook called The Kids' Book of Challah, which all age kids, doesn't have an expiration date.
Right. And I know we're talking to older kids here, teenagers, not kids anymore, but it's also for you, I promise.
And it really just brings this love of Yiddishkeit through all, through every part of the family. It's the strands of inspiration, of love. And Rochi's a pretty cool person. She travels around the country and the globe. She inspires Jewish women to embrace their uniquely feminine power through the wisdom of Torah, through the deep teachings of Torah as well. And Rochi has made challah bakes, not just with communities, but also with pretty cool people.
Everybody I make challah with is cool.
That's true.
Yes.
That's true.
Yes.
And she teaches tips, tricks, techniques of making challah. And she's really sharing, not just challah, but what does it mean? What is the true feminine power of a woman? And it's so, it's so one with the challah. So I'm really excited for this episode. Okay, so Rochi, I'm so excited to hear, how did you get into all this?
Where did it all begin?
I always say, there wasn't this, what do they call it? The guidance counselor who sat down and said to me, you really should consider a career in challah.
There was no 5-year plan.
Not part of my plan. And really, I never really have a plan, to be honest. So, sometimes we connect differently to different characters in the Torah. And I always say that I connect very strongly to Yosef HaTzadik. And I really... What I love about Yosef is kind of he's this big dreamer and he has, big ideas for himself, but no plan. And he kind of just falls into every situation. And then once he's put into a situation, he just rises to the occasion. And I kind of feel like that's the story of my life. I tend to say yes when I'm asked to do something or to show up for something. And it's led
you said
to a
yes
lot
to
of,
come here to
I
talk
said yes
to the team.
come here, and it's kind of put me into really unexpected and crazy situations, and it's brought me to where I am today. So it's served me well, and a lot of happy accidents.
So
Happy
nice.
accident.
I feel like in the world that we live in, sometimes there are people oh, you're so delusional. And I'm I'm delusional like Yosef.
Yeah.
The
Be
Hannah
delusional,
Ben-Ari
dream-
song,
yeah.
Gamani Cholem Kmo Yosef.
Yes,
We
it's
dream
one of my
big.
favorite
But
songs.
also, that's how Hashem is communicating to us which direction we should be going to. These opportunities are indicators. Follow that arrow.
Right. And I feel like this so often Hashem is giving us messages and we're just not picking up on it because we're so hung up on what we think we should be doing for people who do have a good plan, that's great. And I feel like everyone has a different path to get to their place. But my path has always been just show up and things will happen. And
So how'd you fall into this?
Is it a type B personality? I think sometimes it is.
it's definitely not type A. I could be type Z. I don't know, but not type A. So the challah thing was another happy accident, really. So I'm newly married, said yes to my husband, right? So it starts there. And my husband and I are Chabad. So, be Chabad, see the world. That's the way it goes. And we are newly married, and we get a phone call from Chabad headquarters. And they tell us that there is this community in Kobe, Japan, and they don't have a rabbi right now. And it's almost Tishrei. It's getting urgent. Rosh Hashanah's coming. They need a rabbi. Would we go out there and lead the community?
And of course you said yes.
Of course I said yes. I would never say yes to anything,
Wow.
I was never in Japan. So my husband had spent a lot of time on Merkah shlichus, like the shlichus that people do when they're single. He had spent a lot of time in the Far East, so they kind of knew he was connected to the different communities. So that's kind of how we fell into that. But I had never been. And this was a great adventure. Said yes, packed a lot of tuna and figured I was set.
It was before they had the packets, so it was
No. There was it was tuna and matzah was like what you took when you went off to the wild.
Not like string cheese? I feel like string cheese.
No, I don't know. This was a long time ago. But yeah, I figured we have everything we need, Suitcase full of tuna, we're good. So we get there and it's right before Rosh Hashanah and we sit down with the community leaders and so they we start talking about what's, going to be and menus and of course I'm so naive and I turn to the president of the shul and say, so where does one buy the challah in Kobe? Yeah. And his face just literally fell. And he looked at me like, uh-oh, who did they send us? And just to backtrack a little bit, I actually did not know you can make challah. I thought bakeries made challah only. So I grew up in Vancouver, British Columbia. My parents are the Chabad Shluchim there. And we had nothing kosher in the entire city. We were like the first people keeping kosher there. And there was one thing you could buy kosher in Vancouver, British Columbia back then. It was a little tiny hole-in-the-wall bakery that sold one kind of bread, and it was challah. And this was really, really lucky for my mother. I guess I get my luck from somewhere. So she tried making challah early in her marriage, and it was an epic fail. And she was fully traumatized. And she gets to Vancouver, and there's literally nothing that you can buy except challah. So that was really lucky for her. But for me, they say everyone needs a good origin story. So I said that was also lucky for me that I never had homemade challah. Otherwise, wouldn't have the story to tell you. But I didn't even know that you can make challah by hand. I thought it grows in a bakery. So this was my big aha moment. And I was going to have to make challah not just for my family, but now for an entire community, for all of the Yom Tovim. And this was a challenge, so I don't back down from a challenge. And I head into that kitchen, and every single thing was in Japanese, and nothing looked like what I knew it should look like. And this was before you could, Google or go on YouTube and
watch a tutorial,
right? Or ask ChatGPT to make the challah for you. And I had to really just figure this thing out. And I did, and it was a great challenge. And at the end of the day, I had this 50 challahs.
Whoa.
And beginner's luck, they rose, they smelled amazing. And it was really an incredible experience. If you think about it, for a 21-year-old girl, what had I even cooked in my life before this? I didn't yet have a family or a home. I was just starting out. We were a few months into our marriage. And here I am being called on to feed this whole community. And it was such an amazing experience feeding them this challah. It didn't feel like the other stuff that I made, whether it was the chicken or the salads or the other stuff that I was making and helping out in the kitchen with throughout that whole season. It was really the challah that I felt like I was sharing a part of myself. And it felt really powerful. And I made a pledge then that I want a home that smells like challah before Shabbos. I want my kids to come home Erev Shabbos and feel that. And so that's
where it all began.
How it started.
Wow.
With my challah.
I know also you don't just talk about challah when you're going to challah bakes. You talk a lot about what it means to be a Jewish woman and what does it mean feminine power. And I'm curious, what's that connection? What's the connection between challah, between being a Jewish woman, between true feminine power?
Yeah, that was my journey, really, going back into the kitchen every week and feeling like I was connecting with this mitzvah and connecting with the process. And there was so much information and so much wisdom in this, really, in the wisdom of how we feed our families and how we feed ourselves that really helped me in my sort of journey to figuring out what does it mean to be a powerful woman. And okay,
So what happened next?
so I'll take you back. I'll take you back. Growing up as a girl of the 80s and
It was
90s.
the best era. Even though, like,
I thought so. I thought it was pretty great. The big hair, the big everything, and the big shoulder pads. So to me, like, this image in my mind of a powerful woman was like, you know, the power suit with like the enormous shoulder pads, which
I could totally visualize that. I know what you're talking about.
and a little briefcase on the side.
Yes, the briefcase. Remember when we had briefcases
And the heels.
And the heels.
But not thin heels, like the thick,
the practical.
pumped. Yes.
The practical ones that the flight attendants used to wear.
Yes.
Do you remember the flight attendants wore heels?
Absolutely.
And pantyhose, and like you wore, and there was like the pencil skirt and the big
look on the face.
And yes, and
powerful
we were like
look, yeah.
serious because we were in a man's world, and we were crushing it. Like we could do whatever they do, but we could do it in a pink suit, so it was different. But we had the huge shoulder pads. It was like, that sort of represented, I think back, like that represented like we were in a masculine world. Like the difference between a man and a woman, like the big shoulders and our little delicate shoulders. No, we were going to be like the big, powerful woman. We can do everything that a man can, but we can do it in heels and we can do it in a pink suit. And I kind of had this picture in my mind. I knew I wanted to do something in this world, and I wanted to be powerful in some way. And that was sort of the image that I carried with me, was this like pink, massive shoulder pads, you know, purposefully getting on a train and going to the city and going to work. And I had this image in my mind, but I've always been an artist. And I kind of wanted to figure out, how do I combine
How do you
these
merge
things?
those two?
Yeah. So I kind of got into to commercial art, like graphic design and advertising, and I love words and writing, so that was like a great way of combining the image with the words and concepts and ideas, and it was perfect. And so, so I went to school for that, and I went, after I got married, went to school, and just a little tangent, like on my process to becoming, you know, the woman in the big pink suit. I was going to school and I was newly married, so I was still self-conscious about wearing my sheitel, and I was covering my hair with a wig. And so I was like very conscious because everyone was my age, but like nobody was married. You know, this wasn't like Turo, it was art school. So I was really the only one married, and then I'm wearing a wig. So at this point in my life, I was self-conscious about it. And I was always worried that people were going to realize that it was a wig. And then like, as like time wore on and I got pregnant, it was the winter, and I was like lazy about like fussing with, it was before lace shaitels, by the way. So it's like I was fussing with my hairline. So I started
like tease it, right?
Yeah. So I just started sticking on a beanie every day, and it was winter, so it was perfect. And then a girl in my class like once called me aside, and she's like, "Can I ask you a really personal question?" And I'm like, okay. She's like, "I know that you're Jewish and I see that you're pregnant." She's like, "Is there something about covering your hair when you get pregnant?"
She thought you were putting on the beanie because you're
right, exactly. And I
like,
thought,
I'm just lazy.
I'm like, I thought she like discovered that I was wearing a wig. I was like, oh my God, is like my hairline showing? And I was like, "Why do you ask?" And she said, "Well, you started wearing a hat every day, and now I notice you're pregnant." And I was like, "Oh." So then I told her, I was like, "Actually, this is covering my real head covering." And like, I kind of pledged from then that I'm going to be really proud of my sheitel. And it's really been part of my shlichus. Like, and I work with a lot of celebrities, and I teach people who are, you know, the image is really important. And I feel like part of my shlichus is wearing a really good wig and telling people, by the way, this is a wig. And I feel like
it is gorgeous. You
and
look
I feel
fantastic, and it totally could be your hair.
It's really important. I feel like that people should know that you can cover your hair and still look good, and it could look, you know, you can look like a woman who cares about her appearance. Anyways, so tangent. But going on my journey to get to the pink suit, And
It was like a fuchsia, not a light
no,
pink.
it was a hot
It
pink.
was like,
It was like nobody would miss you
right.
in all the black suits. You were the
Right.
one in the pink
Yeah,
suit.
yeah.
You were still making a statement. I'm a woman and I'm here. And that was a big deal then. And I think like girls, like I feel like I'm talking to a generation that is post-feminist. So for you guys, this is like kind of like almost, it's funny to think about it because like you already know.
I'm like thinking about the generation that my girls are growing up in, and it's like the Pilates generation.
Yeah,
it's like the opposite of that.
Yeah.
It's because we're able to lean into our femininity more.
Yeah, and I
but
think
I know
like we
exactly
don't
what you're
have to
talking
feel
about.
like we need to like show
like them.
be like a man. But this is like, and this is part of the Mashiach journey, and we'll talk about that. I think that it's like part of our journey is that like we don't have to show up in a suit with big shoulder pads. Like that's not where our source is. But I was still in that mode. Like I still thought that was power. And so I graduated and got an amazing job right out of college in the city with an ad agency. And I felt like I was just crushing this thing, you know?
You made it.
I made it. I bought the suit, showed up to my first week of work, and it was so much fun. I was living the dream. And it was the first Friday that I was at work. And of course I had spoken to my bosses and told them I'm religious and got to go home at noon on Friday. And they were so understanding and everything was working out so well. And it's noon on Friday and I'm sitting at my desk and I am nowhere near ready to go home. And clients are calling and there's a deadline and there's an urgent meeting I have to go into and the stuff is piling up and I'm watching the clock and I have all my ingredients in my kitchen. You know, I laid them out in the morning all nicely. Like I was going to make my challah because remember I was making challah every week and this was like part of my plan. This was like what I was going to do. And the clock is ticking and the clock is ticking. And it ends up like I'm finally running out of the office on my way back to the train. And I call my husband and like I was so devastated. I was like, I think you're going to have to go and buy challah in the bakery. I am not going to manage challah. And like that Shabbos was like the first time since I started making Shabbos and that we didn't have homemade challah. And as I sat at the Friday night table, I sat at the Shabbos meal eating this bakery challah. No offense.
Was it egg challah?
I don't know. It was just, it's not the same. It's not the same. And I felt really crushed because I guess until then I kind of had this illusion
that we could do it
that
all.
we can do it all. I was a girl of the 80s and the 90s and we grew up with that. You can do it all. And like I thought that meant that we can be a man and a woman. I thought that's what it meant. And I mean,
I think that's what the world was trying to tell us.
that's what the world was telling us.
Right.
And I should have known better. But I didn't yet. And it was that was a huge aha moment for me. And I sat at my Shabbos table and felt like, ooh, I think I have to rethink this. Like, this is not going to work. Like, my house didn't feel like Shabbos. I like literally jumped in the shower, put on something, sat down. I didn't feel like it was Shabbos. I'm like, oh, is this how my kids are going to grow up? Is this the home? Like, no, I want music blasting in the kitchen and a happy mother making challah. And I want the house to smell like challah. And I want that. Yeah, and I also want to be super creative. And I want to be able to like use my talents and use my abilities, but not at the expense of that. And it was a really hard Shabbos. And I cried a lot. And at the end of Shabbos, I made a decision. And Sunday morning, I called my boss and I quit my job. Just like that. I was like, this is not going to work. This is not going to work.
You're so lucky though that you like realized it so fast.
I know. I don't know.
Like it was like your feminine instinct to be like, no, I need something else.
Yeah. I feel so lucky and I feel so blessed. And I know that it's also a function of growing up, you know, as a Chabad chassid and being surrounded by women who were powerful. Like, you know, my mother was a shlucha and she was teaching classes and people were calling her and asking her advice. And I knew there was power there, but, you know, they say in Yiddish, there's a word fakishift. You can get sort of talked into, right, or like sort of sucked into the secular vision of what success is, or what any definition is,
Or
and
what femininity
what
is.
femininity, right?
So
Success
it's so
as a woman.
interesting because you learn and you make challah bakes with a lot of these executives.
Yeah.
Right? You're working with celebrities. And, I think I saw a post of you making challah with Ivanka.
Yes, we did.
Which sounds so I'm curious, like clearly they're resonating with your message of what it means to be a woman. And I'd love if you can talk a little bit more, to the girls that are listening.
Yeah.
What does it mean to be a woman? What is femininity according to Tyra?
Beautiful. Yeah. So yes, elephant in the room. I do. I make challah with celebrities. I don't name drop, and I don't put them on my Instagram feed generally.
Sorry.
No. I think it's actually important. And girls, if you're listening, I actually do think it's important to know, because we do live in a society and a culture that that creates sort of a mystical aura around these people. And we can get sort of sucked into that and think like that they are actually in some way more successful or more powerful than we are. And some of them do. They have a tremendous platform and they have a capacity. And by the way, my making challah with a lot of these celebrities has segued into my learning with them. And I have amazing chaburas and chavrusas with incredible women, and I will not name drop, but Ivanka is one of them. We learn Parsha every week, and I feel like it's such a gift to be able to give them this awareness of their feminine power and show them how the Torah really is ours, how we can own it. But it starts with food. Like my journey started with food, and it still is very much about that. And if you really think about it, everything starts with food. We tend to think, I happen to love food, by the way.
Wouldn't have guessed.
People actually tell me, like, they see me coming, they wash. They're like, the carbs are coming. But I bring challah with me a lot. It happens. I've sort of, I fell into it, Yosef, my reality. But if you think about it, we tend to think that food issues are really very 21st century, and they're really modern, whether it's keto or gluten-free or I don't know, what's the newest trend?
Intermittent fasting.
Intermittent not eating at all. Right. That's the newest thing. We went from not eating this to just like not
just
eating.
Don't eat.
Just
right.
don't eat. But yeah, and we really, like, we tend to think that it's such a modern thing. Actually, when I was speaking to a group of girls once, and there was one of the people who were speaking was a Holocaust survivor, and she was talking about her story, and she said something about, like, there was one time, like, they didn't eat for like 3 days, and a girl, it was a high school girl, and she was like, "Wow, I admire your self-control."
Oh my goodness.
Yeah. No, so they say our eating issues are hereditary. We get them, from my mother starved herself, my grandmother starved herself.
My goodness. You should just know that, like, I feel like my grandparents who are survivors, they would just like stuff us with food.
Yes,
like,
exactly.
Everything
and
on
so
your plate.
much of the way we relate to food has so much to do with our story of survival and all of that. But if you want to really think about food issues, they go back to, like, literally the dawn of creation. We were all of how many hours old in Gan Eden? We were just created. And what is, like, there are so many ways we could have sabotaged ourselves, really. But how do we sabotage ourselves? With food. The first thing we do is we eat the wrong food when we're not supposed to eat it, and everything fractures after that. Like, that's like the beginning of, like, the breaking, and we're working towards healing that since that moment, and it really all began with food. And if you think about it, if it was food that was the doorway out of Gan Eden, then it will be food that brings us back into that state of wholeness and integration and feeling at one. And that brings us to the woman, because we are the feeders, we are the nurturers of this world.
We're so lucky.
Aim kol chai, we are. I wouldn't have it any other way. And it's like that's where the healing begins. So, I might be talking to an audience now. Girls, you might be at a stage where you're not thinking about feeding other people, but you're thinking about how you feed yourself. And that's so important right now. In these years, before you start building a home, before you're the one who's in charge of the kitchen and in charge of what you're putting into your family's lunch boxes, what are you putting into your own body, and how are you connecting with that food, and what's your relationship to eating and to food? And that's something we have to figure out, because it's where it begins, how we nourish ourselves and how integrated we feel internally.
So interesting. I remember going to a nutritionist who told me, just like a baby needs to nurse every few hours, you have to feed the baby, you have to feed yourself every few hours like a baby. And I was like, I didn't think of that. I didn't think of this idea of, nourishing myself as a responsibility, as an obligation, as a nurturing thing. I was like, oh,
Right. Right. And so many times, we start our journey as wives and mothers before we ever really thought about this. And now we're responsible for feeding other people, but we don't even know how to feed ourselves. So,
and it's like a full-time job. It's like a full-time, from the thinking about what you're going to make, to the shopping, to the buying, and all the intentions that go into it. I feel like there's so much to meal planning. There's such a spiritual side to it. How am I going to feed everybody in the healthiest way? What are my intentions when I cook the food? What am I giving over to my family when I do it? And so much carried over.
It's so interesting. I just remembered something.
yeah.
The Lubavitcher Rebbe had 12 Torah passages that he taught that all children should learn.
Right. It's
And
the
one of
foundation
them,
of all
which is the foundation of chinuch, one of them is Vishinantam, right? It's the pasuk that says, Vishinantam l'v'necha, that you should be teaching your children, right? In every aspect of your life. B'shivtecha b'veisacha v'lechtach v'derech, that wherever you are, there's no scope of your life that's outside of Torah and Yiddishkeit. What's the example that the Rebbe gives? The practical, I guess, how the expression of Vishinantam l'v'necha, it's in a sicha. The Rebbe says healthy eating.
Wow.
Healthy eating from the perspective of not like a selfish perspective, not from a modern culture perspective, but even there we can have the Torah perspective.
Yeah.
Even there you could, you used the word integrated before.
Yeah.
Can you expound what that means a little bit? Based on what we're saying here about the intention and the spiritual and this being every aspect of our life, what does it mean, integration, that a woman integrates?
I mean, first of all, it's not an accident that we have to feed ourselves constantly, that we are created. Hashem created us this way on purpose, that we get hungry.
Right. We can't just take a pill.
That we get
breakfast,
The
lunch,
mun
and
wasn't even
supper.
satisfying.
we want to feed ourselves. It's really how we were created. So we need to really figure it out. It's the first, if you think about it, it's the first intentional act we do after we're born is eat. We nurse. It's the first act.
And it's instinctual. It's this is what I need.
It's instinctual, but it's something you have to actually almost draw yourself to it. So you're breathing first, right? But that's almost an involuntary. So the first voluntary way that we nourish ourselves is food. It's our first experience of want, of desire, of need in this world. So food is really primal, and how we're fed and how we feed our children is gonna inform what they expect of the world. Do they trust the world that when they're hungry, that there's food for them, that when they need something, and that's, we talk about Hashem, and it can be like a foreign concept. All these words that you're learning in school, and your teacher saying, Kedusha and Tahara and Hashem, and they sound.
We almost make it sound cliche.
Yeah, and they sound like words that really. They really have to do so much with our human experience, the day-to-day.
It's hard because
life.
sometimes it's not tangible. So it's that's something that's a little bit more foreign. But I think the integration will help once you teach it to us.
Yeah. Well, I'm working on teaching it to myself. I think it's a lifelong learning. I think it's
So how do you bridge that? How do you bridge the Hashem from cliche to being something, that is integrated into your food?
Right. Okay. We'll make the leap. So, well, we're talking about feeding ourselves and feeding our family, right? And by the way, the food that was in Gan Eden, the food that they ate that caused all the problems to begin with.
It wasn't an apple.
It was not an apple. I think the artist
to change all the Parsha
painted
pictures.
That. They just thought an apple was
where did they get
prettier.
the apple from? Like, where did that come from?
I think it was probably considered like the
most luscious
prized fruit at that time. Like, it was probably really hard to get an apple, you know? It was like apples were something special, but the Mefarshim have many different explanations. And the one that really I connect to is that it was wheat.
How's wheat a fruit?
Right. How could you eat wheat? But like, then I guess that I'm thinking that like, it was right when Hashem said was like eitz pri osapri, that you should eitz pri osapri, right?
Yeah.
That like you could be able to eat anything that just comes straight from the ground.
Right.
So like
in a world where everything is nourishing and everything is one and there's no like sifting and there's no processing, like the world is just in an integrated state, then everything nourishes us perfectly. And wheat was like that. Like you could pick it.
It was edible.
It was edible.
No chaff, no nothing.
And you know, bread is the perfect form of sustenance, right? So when you eat bread, like you could live on bread and water. You can actually survive. It has every nutrient that you need. It's gotten a bad rap.
Right.
With the whole gluten-free thing. And I try to talk people out of that in my cookbook. But it originally, this chita, the wheat is like this perfect form of nourishment.
it is like the first of like this Shivas Haminim. So like it has like such importance.
It is. And we're told that a person doesn't have das or awareness until they eat wheat. Like wheat is this fruit it's the grain of awareness. So it's this idea that they were eating this wheat, but they weren't ready yet. They didn't work through what had to be worked through. They wasn't ready for that moment in creation for them to have that.
Is that
das.
because it was like still the 6 days of the week?
Yeah.
And it wasn't yet Shabbos?
Yeah. It wasn't yet the moment when the world when they were ready for the Das. And so, this idea that now we have to go through a whole process to get to a place where it nourishes us. We have to, and the process of getting from wheat to bread is an enormous process that takes
we don't even know. We just like pick it up in the grocery store.
We think it's a process to make the challah.
Right.
Like that's
just
nothing.
to get to the flour.
Right. Just to get it to a state where it's flour. Like that's such an avodah. So really for us, like connecting to that idea that we are, that there is this masculine idea of going through the process, the 6 days of the week, the making things happen. The power suit with the big shoulder pads. It's like that masculine reality of like, I'm going to go to work. I'm going to go to a place and I'm going to get things done. And that's success. And in the 6 days of the week, in a masculine reality, that is success. But then there's that whole other side. There's the nurturing and the nourishing. That is the Shabbos. That is this space of everything is as it needs to be and you just show up. And that really, in terms of eating, these two awarenesses are so important.
Like
to
the
be conscious.
preparing the food versus like the eating the food?
Or the state that we're in when we eat the food. Like, are we in that go, 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 go? The rat race of the world of like, I need to get this done and I need to finish this and I need to get good marks on my test and I need to finish the report and I need to show up at this time and that's like our 6 days a week, but that's survival. And survival mode is not a mode which encourages digestion. So it's a really powerful idea that our brains, they have different functions. And when we're in survival mode and when we're worried about...
We can't process our food. We can't even properly digest it.
No, our body won't. Our body won't. It won't use the resources to digest the food if it needs them for survival. So that really explains like why Ashkenazis have all these like...
We love a good
food
gastro.
issues, right? Because like we've been surviving for so many years.
So you're paralleling that to the 6 days of the week as opposed to Shabbos,
Right.
which is not go, 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 go.
Right.
And Shabbos is the woman.
Right. Yeah. So when you're like eating from this place of survival, like you could be eating the healthiest thing. You can be eating an apple, back to the apple, but with so much guilt and shame and feeling so bad about yourself. And I don't need this. I'm like, I'm just acting, and I'm like, I'm fat. And it actually doesn't allow you to digest. And then you could sit down Friday night and it's peaceful. And you've prepared this challah, or your mother's prepared the challah, and the house smells like all the food, and your body just knows it's Shabbos. You know that feeling when you just know your whole body relaxes, like that tiredness of Friday night. It doesn't matter, it doesn't matter what time. It could be 4:00 in the afternoon, right?
So funny. I joke that like during the week, like I eat it out of my car, which is like the worst thing because I'm always in that stress, running. So like I have pictures of myself like sitting in the car, and I'm like, my Shabbos homework is to like sit at the table and be present with the food and make the bracha for the food. And like when Friday night before we eat the challah, when everybody's like quiet, sitting around the table, there's like this hush around the table and everybody's like waiting. And then like the bracha comes and there's like intention.
Yeah.
And we're big like first course Yidden. Like our first course is like,
How many dips do you serve?
Challah and dips. What else do you need?
Right. We really kind of stop there. We do like a little soup and whatever, and then we
The
go.
dips have taken over. It's
But
official.
it's the challah. It's like we're all waiting for that challah because it comes with the intention. It comes with like knowing that I'm not rushing anywhere and I could sit there and I could eat it and I can enjoy it and it properly digests.
Yeah.
And then we always have a good sleep Friday night, usually.
Yeah, well, the challah helps. But we always say that you don't gain weight on Shabbos, right? And I mean, it also helps that you can't weigh yourself on Shabbos. But I think it really comes from that. This is integration, right? Like when you're eating that first bite of challah and it means Shabbos to you and it means that you are, that this is the taste of Shabbos and you've waited for this and you like earned this Shabbos challah, you know? And it's like that is being absorbed. Your body knows what to do with that challah. Your body's going to process that
So
challah.
interesting because that's also probably the idea of like Einik Shabbos.
Yeah.
That because you have this access to this higher level of your neshama, there's something special about
And what
Shabbos.
does that mean? See, we
Yeah.
say these words, you have high access
Yeah.
to, what does that even mean? What does that mean that I have higher access? What does it mean I have an access?
What does it
we
mean
have
you have
like
access to
a neshama
your-
yisera.
Neshama Yisera, Yechida, but Yechida literally means unity, one,
Right.
integration.
Right.
That means on Shabbos, we have this ability that all these physical pleasures can be united, can be one with spirituality.
Yeah,
Right, where like during the week it's
Right.
like scattered, right?
Yeah.
Like we discussed that idea of like avodas habirurim, like being
Right.
able to like sift through whatever needs to be done. And it's funny because like challah actually, like flour has to be sifted. Actually, the first time I sifted challah was when I lived in Israel and they're like, there's bugs. You have
Yeah,
to
only
sift
in
it.
Israel. But,
Right.
But yeah.
Here it's like
thankfully
pre-sifted.
Here everything's faster in America.
Right. Do you sift your own?
I
or
don't
no?
sift my flour. I buy it in those like the plastic, you know, like the plasticky.
Right, yeah.
You know, like those, they're sealed.
Right.
You don't have to
So you
sift.
don't have to sift it.
I think American flour in general, but maybe if you live in like humid climates, but
Right.
whatever.
So how does everything we're talking about here with Shabbos and the integration, how does it connect back to the mistake that Chava made?
Right. So there was like this disconnect between the food they were eating and the intention, right? They wanted to eat the food to like
Oh, wait, it's
be
Das.
like-
It's a Das.
Yeah, it's a das. So it was the food that would bring them knowledge. But why did they want that knowledge? What was that knowledge for? It's the Nachash, right, who convinces Chava that this is going to make her, like, they know they're in the image of God.
This
but that
is gonna make you
gonna
godlike.
This is going to make you godlike. This is going to make you all powerful. But they were embracing the wrong kind of power. Ooh. Right?
They were looking at the pink suit.
Yeah, it was the pink suit they were going for, not an integrated power. And that's like, they ate it too early. They would have been able to when they had matured to the point that their Daas was online. And, you know, when we say Daas, when we talk about this word, it's really, you know, there's different parts of our brain. We always talk, in Chassidus, we talk about moach shalit ala lev, that the mind rules over the heart, right? Which is really that integration between mind and body. But we're not talking about like the parts of our brain which are like the amygdala, which is like that part of our brain which is about survival and instinct and like the stuff that I just like need to do to like the fears or the blockages or the part where I feel like I'm not enough, and like those parts that sort of sometimes hijack our higher awareness. The Daas that we're talking about is that prefrontal cortex.
I was just going to say the prefrontal
The
cortex.
prefrontal cortex, which if I'm talking to teenagers here, girls, you should
definitely
just
memorize
know
this.
you are in the process of building your prefrontal cortex right now. I think they've now realized that a person doesn't really develop their prefrontal cortex entirely till about 23. So it's not even like
It's in development stage.
it's in development stage, which is so important because right now, all the information that you're getting is like you're absorbing it, and then it's becoming integrated. To come into a state of maturity is that when that information takes hold in such a way that it changes you, that your body responds differently to that information. Because we can know that this thing is really bad for us,
But we're still doing it.
we're still gonna do it, like because somehow, there's a great story of the Frierdiker Rebbe, the previous Lubavitch Rebbe, and he went to the doctor, and in those days, like everyone smoked. It was like the doctor was smoking, right? Everyone smoked. It was like, and there were just early studies coming out that were saying that. So the Frierdiker Rebbe is smoking, and this doctor's smoking, and the Frierdiker Rebbe was a very heavy smoker. And the doctor said to him, there's studies coming out now that they're thinking that it might not be so good for your health. Anyways, at the end of the appointment, the doctor offers the Frierdiker Rebbe a cigarette.
No way.
I mean, because this was such new information. And the Frierdiker Rebbe said, I don't smoke. Wow. And like, that's Daas. Okay? It's not like, I'm not going to smoke now. No.
He got it.
He got it. It's not good for my body. Why would I do it?
Wow.
That's mind-body integration. That's when
It just reminds me of a story of
Yeah.
my father. Lilo Nishmas Yisrael Tzvi Ben Aaron David. I lost my father like a year and a half ago, but he grew up at the same time. He's like they got married in like '69, my parents, and also back then like everybody was smoking. And my father was with my oldest brother. They were sitting together, and he was eating he was eating like a piece of chicken, and he ate like the skin of the chicken. And my father's like, Shuli, like you shouldn't really eat the skin of the chicken. It's not so healthy. It's very fat. And he's like, okay. And then he looked at my father, and he's like, yeah, but smoking's not so healthy, and you do it. And at that moment, my father stopped smoking.
Wow.
Like just like that.
Wow.
That
Wow.
just
Just
like
like,
scared me.
get it.
I'm also middle of reading Undaunted, so is that what it is?
Yes, Undaunted.
Yes, on the Frierdiker Rebbe. I didn't get
It's
to
a
that
new
story.
book
Yes.
about
Yeah.
the Frierdiker Rebbe,
Yes.
and you see it's amazing.
But that like integration, like when it hits, like, and I'll always
Yeah.
think about that
Yeah.
with my father, like how
Yeah.
if you know something and then you could stop it, right?
Yeah. And we know so much stuff, but till it actually...
So it's very interesting because we're talking about integration being Shabbos, but we're contrasting it with the 6 days a week. But shouldn't we be trying to have that integration during the week also?
Absolutely, absolutely.
Is that like Mashiach?
That's Mashiach. That's Mashiach. I think we are. We're living in this time. So this, like, I'm talking to you guys, and I think like you're thinking about the pink suit, and you're like, we're past that. Like we know that's not
It.
power anymore. Like, and I think that's such a beautiful thing that you're growing up in a generation that's really so much more in touch with what it means to be a woman. And this really was my journey to Challah, to teaching Challah, was working, we're on Shluchas in Park Slope, Brooklyn, and been there for 25 years. And the community there is very, very liberal. And you have a lot of the, they're not hot pink suit women anymore, but, power, the women who are living in men's world. And this was like the early years of our shlichas, and they would come to us, and I would be making challah, and they would just be so overwhelmed by this idea that like they never cooked anything in their lives. They didn't know how to turn on their ovens. And I would be like, come, I'll teach you. And like I realized that they were like, they needed to get back in touch with that part of themselves that knew how to nourish, that knew how to nurture. And they had lost touch with that in that desire to be in a men's world.
Right, like the secular feminism was like drawing them away from who they truly wanted to be.
Right. And it was kind of like, we almost had to prove to ourselves that we could do what a man does, and we can do it in heels and with a baby on our hip and faster. But then once we proved that to ourselves,
It shifted.
we're like, okay, but we know we can, but is this what we really want? And now we're really making choices that are so much more informed and come from such a deeper place of awareness. And what is our power to tap into that Shabbos reality? This is why we're the Mashiach. We are the harbingers of Mashiach as the feeders, right? As the ones who are going to bring us back into Gan Eden. We are the ones who are going to figure out this integration of mind and body, of what does it mean to be really present. And that's the role of the woman in her fullness of her power, is that awareness that when we're really show up, just being there, like in the fullness, like our minds and bodies being connected, our hearts being open, and just being that container,
The vessel.
the vessel for our people, like just like showing up with everything that we are. It's and I always say, I'll never ask a woman what she does. Like, people will be like, what do you do? I'm like, don't ask a woman what she does. And she could do amazing things. And I'm the first one to say, I've done many things after that job that I quit. I went on to be a creative director at a small from ad agency that I helped to found. And I was there for many years. I never worked on a Friday ever again. Wow. And I took off every summer so that I could be with my kids. And I only worked when they were so. And I figured out a way to make it work so that I could be creative. And then I went and wrote challah cookbooks, and I teach, and I do so much stuff. So it's not like we don't do. But you don't ask a woman what she does, because it's not about that. It's about who she is.
No, I recently saw this quote. It was like somebody had shared it, and it said, like, stop measuring days by degree of productivity and start experiencing them by the degree of presence. And like, I think as women, it's like, how can I be productive? How can I be productive? As girls, we're like, oh, we're doers. We
have
say
ambition.
yes to everything. We have ambition, and we're going. And then like, it comes at the expense of being present. And it's so hard. And like, when you think about the challah and about the process and how it's so slow, and you can't just like make challah in 1 minute. Like, you realize that, like that Friday, like you had this like aha moment.
We're building something.
We're building something, and it takes time, and the rising and all of that is like making us be more and more present.
Right.
It's so interesting because it's not just this generation. Like, challah is like a generational thing, which means that this wisdom, our mothers they knew this.
Yes.
But it's funny though, because what you were saying, how like your mother didn't make challah. Like, anytime I had a conversation with my grandmother, who's a survivor and everything, we never made challah, because because they were in survival mode, they weren't making challah. So it was a lost art, and like, we're bringing it back with this like Mashiach energy, like with this 7th millennia, with being more present, and we're so lucky.
Do you have any stories of this lost art, like in all your trips around the world?
I have a great story for you. Really, that illustrates what we're building, when we build a home. Because, we talk about a woman as a karas habayis, she's the foundation. And I always say, it doesn't mean you're the doormat or the floor. The foundation holds everything up, and the foundation never walks away. It's always there, and everything is built on that. And the work we do, and if we're in that process male mode of like get things done and check them off a list, like we're going to be endlessly frustrated for the rest of our lives, because the work of nurturing and the work of the woman is constantly being undone, and we're redoing it.
It could be the same thing every single day.
Yes, exactly. You make the bed, they sleep in it. You wash the dish, they eat on it. Like, everything gets undone.
Like food, the most.
It's food, you cooked it, you spend all day, 2 seconds later, it's gone. So we have to get in touch with what we're building. What we're building that is eternal. We say build a bayis ne'eman b'Yisrael, like build like an eternal structure when you build a home. So what are we doing? So I had this actually incredible story when I was doing a challah bake in Spain. So, have challah, we'll travel. My challah talks have taken me all over the world. It's been such an awesome journey. Always looking for a travel.
You need
come
us.
along. So for this one, I actually took my husband along, because I was like, Spain, and he's a history buff. He knows everything. And we had over 1,000 years of history in Spain. Like, wow. How long have we been in America? Like a minute. And 1,000 years of Jewish life in Spain. Can you imagine how like deeply embedded. We were into that culture. But the Inquisition came along and that they were very thorough. And you go to Spain now and you really don't see signs, like you have to dig, but it's all there if you know where to look. So I was doing this challah bake in Marbella, Spain, in the south of Spain. And I was on my way to Cordoba. And everybody knows Cordoba, right? Or Cordoba, as they say there. And Cordoba, we have this statue of Rambam there. The Rambam studied in the university there. There's history. You can actually see things there. So we were on our way to Cordoba. And on the highway, there was this sign. And my husband says, "Oh my gosh, pull over." And great thing to tell your wife when she's driving at 60 miles on the highway. But, you know, I do. I pull over and I said, "What?" And he said, "Did you see the sign? It was Lucena." And I said, "Yeah, I saw what? Yeah, so what?" And he's like, "Lucena is a famous city." Well, I did not know. And so you guys, if you're listening to this and you're like, "Well, what's Lucena?" I never heard of it
I've
either.
never heard of it either.
Okay, so this was my education too. And we pull in and he starts telling me this Lucena was once a whole Jewish city. Like there was Jews everywhere in Spain and they affected every part of the culture. They were up at the top of the, government and with the kings but there was this one town that was entirely Jewish. And it actually had the biggest yeshiva in the whole world at the time. They had like over 1,000 students in this yeshiva. And they came from all over the world. So this was like a very, very famous town, but of course I never heard of it. But my husband was all excited and he's like, "Ooh, let's go in and see what we can find there." And we're driving in this charming town and we're driving through the roads and there's nothing. There are so many churches.
Oh my.
Nothing that can indicate that there was once Jewish life. And we're really disappointed and we're about to head out. And we're like, okay, we'll stop and say some Tehillim, for all the people who are here. And then we see a sign, this little sign, we could have missed it, on the side, and it says Jewish cemetery. And there was an arrow, and we hop back in the car, we start driving up this winding hill. We get to the top of the hill, and there is this gated cemetery, this little tiny cemetery. And we're peeking through the gates, and it's amazing. Like you could see it was like beautifully kept. We couldn't get in. It was locked, and we're like shaking the gates, and we're like, "No!" And suddenly we hear this woman calling from the bottom of the hill, and she's screaming, "Jews, Jews!" So in
Spanish? You're like, think this shit's happening again.
Use. And we're like, we froze. And then we see this like lovely blonde woman. She's running up, and it's like 110 degrees. She's running up the hill, and she has this big ring of keys, and she opens the gate for us, and she lets us in. Wow. And she starts like excitedly, and her and my husband are both geeking out over like, "Do you know this is the Rif and this is like," and like these
historical names.
These names of like these huge Talmidei Chachamim that like we still study till today, the Rishonim. And she's like so excited, and I'm looking at her, and I don't know what to say. She doesn't look Jewish, and she's speaking Spanish. And she introduced herself to us. Her name is Anna, and I'm like, "Anna, like, what's your connection with this? Like, you're so excited." And she was so happy to see us. It was like, you could think we were the king and the queen that came. Like, she was so excited we were there. And I'm like, "Anna, what's with you and the Jewish cemetery? And what's your connection?" So she shared her story with us. And Anna grew up in Lucena. And her mother did, her grandmother did, her great-great-grandmother, like literally as far back as their records go, which is really far back. And she tells us that they had a lot of weird customs in Lucena. And she just kind of never questioned because like she didn't know anything else until she went away from home for her first year of college. It was the first time she had really been away from home. And it was her first weekend away from home, and she was feeling really homesick. And she turned to her roommate. She's like, "At home I bake bread with my mom." And she's like, "Can we bake bread together?" And I'll feel, wait, it gets even better, I promise. She's like, "I feel like it's home." And her roommate was like, "Fun, homemade bread, yes." So they start putting together this dough. And after the dough comes together, Anna reaches into the bowl and she pulls off a piece of dough. And she throws it into the little toaster oven and she burns it.
She's doing hafrasha.
She had no idea. And her roommate says to her, she's like, "Anna, what did you just do?" She's like, I don't know. Doesn't everyone do this when
Doesn't
they make
everyone do
bread? She's like, no, I really don't think anyone does this. So she calls her mom and she's like, what is that thing we do when we bake bread? And her mom says, I do it because grandma did it, but I have no idea. So she calls her grandmother and she's like, what's that thing we do? And her grandmother says, I don't know. She says, but when I was a little girl, I used to bake bread with my grandmother. And we always did that. And one day I asked her, I was like, Grandma, why do we rip off this piece of dough? And her grandmother said, it's just something the women in our family have always done. Hush, we don't speak about it. And that was that. But of course, for Anna, that was not that. And she went straight to Google and she got Chabad.org. She discovered that this weird little custom was an ancient Jewish practice.
So they were like Marranos? Like, is that what
they
it
were
is?
conversos. Yeah.
Wow.
They were keeping Judaism secretly. She told me then, and like I'll never forget her face. Like she had tears running down her face, like telling me this story. She said, she's like, I understood then that like my mothers, my grandmothers, my great grandmothers, they were willing to risk everything. Like they were willing to risk everything to pass this secretly down to their daughters. Like why? Like this is not just some weird little superstitious thing that they were doing in the kitchen. Like, hey, this is the way we do it. If they were found out, like everything would be gone. Like my early great grandmother, like they were risking their lives. She's like, I needed to understand. Like, what is this thing?
What's challah?
What is challah? What is this thing that Jewish women are doing? Why is it so important that they pass it down to the next generation? What were they keeping alive? Why did they want to keep this alive? So she started studying, and she was in the process of going through conversion. She's since converted.
Wow.
And she said, I want to do this mitzvah with my daughter. I want to say the bracha with her, like, and I want to teach her, and I want to carry this forward because we're building something that is eternal. And they kept it alive so that one day I could, in the 21st century, I could build something. And it's not building towers and architecture that, it's building something eternal in our home just by showing up, by doing that messy work that undoes itself, but like by showing up, by doing it with like the fullness of our being. Like the food is energy. The energy we put into it gets transformed.
I love that, like
energy.
in Israel, or maybe it's just like Europe, where like calories are energy.
Yeah.
Which
is what they are, kilojoules. It's energy. It's measures of energy.
When I was with kids in Israel the first time, and they like looked at the back of something, they're like, "It's energy." I'm like, "Yeah, like that's what it is."
Oh my gosh, I love that you're saying that. I feel like we're so disconnected from that idea that we're supposed to be taking in energy from the rest of the world and integrating that into us. Like this mimer that I'm in the middle of reading right now, I'm learning, which is literally about the idea that why are we built this way? That we need to be constantly feeding ourselves because we're supposed to be taking all these lower life forms, all the materials of this earth and bringing it into ourselves and elevating. And this is what we do as women. We take the raw materials of creation
and we like weave it together.
We build it in our bodies, and then we give forth something. So when we say that the woman is the makabel, we're like the ones who receive. We're not like passive. Like showing up and being present is not passive. It's like the most powerful act you could do is like really showing up. Like
it's just a different kind of do.
Yeah, exactly. It's a doing that comes from being.
Wow.
That's like, it's like doing, and like everything we do in life, we could do amazing things, but it always comes from that place of showing up with the fullness of ourselves, of being really present and aware. That's our power.
Okay, I have a burning question.
Oh my God.
I saw a rant recently where somebody was ranting.
Yeah.
Who decided to take warm, fluffy, delicious challah and swap it for hard sourdough that you need to cut with a machete?
I know.
I'm curious what you think. Does challah need to be challah? Or could challah be sourdough?
Okay, that's such a good question.
I know. I'm middle of battling this.
Yes,
I'm battling this.
I think it's a question that's really important. That speaks.
But I
to
wasn't
this
sure if
whole
it was going to
idea.
like offend you because I'm like, here's the challah queen. How can I talk about sourdough?
No.
I'm curious.
Sourdough is amazing. It's so healthy, and it's like if you feel better when you eat sourdough, yes. But let's just think about what the word challah is, because we identify challah with like these braided loaves. And that's what challah's kind of become in our mind. But challah looked very different depending on where you were in the world. I have a whole section in my cookbook of challahs from around the world. So if you lived in Iran, you know, in ancient Persia, if you lived in Morocco or Yemen or Bukhara, your challah looked very different. There's some really cool challahs there, but they didn't look like the challah. This is like Eastern European, like once flour started to be really refined. So first of all, that's what the challah that we call challah, but the word challah comes from the idea of taking off a piece of dough. That gift that we used to give to the kohen in the Beis HaMikdash, incidentally, we are now the kohanim, and the work of the woman, the 3 mitzvahs of the woman, including challah. Challah is the carbon. And we are the last ones who do carbon. We are the last ones, the last bastion of Tara with the mikvah. We are the last ones to do the work of the kohanim in the Beis HaMikdash. The Shabbos candles that we light is the menorah. It's the way of bringing light and transforming the ambiance. The 3 things that we do as women are literally a translation of the work that the kohen did in the Beis HaMikdash that we are doing in our homes, creating a place for Hashem's presence to rest. So powerful work we're doing. This challah that we take off, it's challah because we take it off with a bracha and with attention. That's what makes it challah. If you do that with your sourdough, then that's
challah.
Okay, but a little caveat. Okay, because there's a reason this is bothering you. And there's a reason that this is bothering, like, there's a reason this, because it's the same bread you're eating during the week. And the thing with challah that's so special is that it's different.
It is.
Is that it's special. It doesn't look
not just
like
avocado toast.
Right. And
I hear that.
There has to be a way. See, I get very emotional when I talk about challah. There has to be a way to make that sourdough different than ordinary bread. So I'm very into that. Like, and we went through a trend of like, you know, people doing colorful tablecloths or really cool table settings, or serving food that wasn't traditional. So like, ditch the gefilte fish and serve tuna
Sushi.
tartare. Yeah, okay. So I'm all for like the modern, but at the same time, there's something that like the smell of challah means Shabbos. And the white tablecloth has so much meaning. Like everything we put on the, and by the way, the braided 6 strands and 6 strands is 12 strands. That's the 12, and we sing this in the song.
Lechem HaPanim.
The Lechem HaPanim in the Beis HaMikdash, the 12 strands is the 12 Shvatim. We're bringing it all together. So there's so much meaning and intention in everything we put on the Shabbos table and in the tradition that you don't want to throw out the baby with the bathwater. So like, yes, serve healthier challah. I'm all for it. And by the way, I serve spelt challah every week. My challah is made with spelt flour every week because my family just loves how they feel after, and it tastes delicious. No one ever knows. I love to just surprise the guests. By the way, and everyone's like, no, it is. It's spelt, but you wouldn't know. It tastes just like challah. And you want it still to be special. So if you are doing sourdough for Shabbos, make it a little different. Like if you're scoring it, like if you're making it yourself and you're scoring, you're like creating the different cuts and the images. I don't know, maybe make an image in it that's like only for Shabbos. Like do like take a little extra time, make it extra beautiful. I also will say that you can braid sourdough, not the sourdough that so what when we talk about sourdough, just like we talk about challah, we talk about a braided loaf. It's like when you say Kleenex, you mean a tissue, right?
Right.
It's like we the brand becomes the thing. So when we say sourdough, we're talking about a rustic loaf, which is a very weekday kind of bread. But the idea of sourdough is wild yeast, which means we're just giving it more time to develop. We're not using commercial yeast. You can make a braided challah that looks exactly and tastes like challah
with using
starter. Okay,
I think I'm going to try that this week.
Yeah. So there are ways to have really, really healthy challah that still feels like challah. And even if you want to do the rustic sourdough loaf, like find a way to make it a little extra special. Maybe do something about the parsha when you score it, or like, write the word Shabbos in, like Lekavet Shabbos. Like when people uncover, like, you know, when you uncover the braided loaf and everyone's like,
Right.
so pretty. It like means something special. Try and find a way to do that with your sourdough and you'll
Right.
That's the integration.
That's the integration.
Right there.
Love it. This is amazing. This has been an
Wow, Rochi, thank you
amazing
so
episode.
much.
Yes,
I'm so
thank you,
excited to
Rochi.
make
So if you
challah.
have to like sum this up in one line, like what's your last message for the girls?
You are the front line. Like you are the future. The world, the future. I've seen the world, the future of the world, and it's feminine. I don't know. They have T-shirts like that, right? But that is, the Mekubalim have been telling us this for years. The future is feminine. Mashiach will come when the feminine waters rise. And we are rising right now. I called my book Rising we are rising into the fullest awareness of who we are as women. Embrace it. We're not meant to be men. We do better when we're women. Like those things that make us feminine, that's where our power is. Lean into it. That's the real leaning in. Lean into your power as a girl. Like those things, like don't let anyone tell you that a girl can't do it, because what we can do from that place of being a girl, from showing up with the femininity, with our awareness, with our sensitivity, our that being able to see another person, that's so powerful. That's so beautiful. And lean into that. Embrace what it means to be a woman. Figure out what it means to be a woman if you don't know. Like there's so much in Chassidus and Kabbalah, and there's so much to learn today about what it means to be a woman, and embrace it, celebrate it, and together we will bring Mashiach.
Wow, that was gorgeous. Thank you so much.
Yay, thank you for having me. This was so much fun.